It started with the scrape of a chair. Not mine, his, Darren's. I hadn't even noticed him walk in. 1 second we were sipping wine and pretending this dinner wasn't weird as hell. And the next, Camille's ex was sliding into the head seat like he owned the damn table. My name's Zach. I'm 34, a commercial pilot based in Seattle. That night, I was supposed to be celebrating our upcoming wedding with Camille, my fiancée, and both our families. A pre-rehearsal dinner kind of thing. Tuxedos, plated salmon, overpriced Merlot, fake smiles. It was already tense, but when Darren walked in, the whole vibe changed. Camille's mom smiled at him. Her dad gave him a little nod, like he'd been expected. Camille barely reacted. That's what got me. She just kept cutting her chicken like this was normal. Like her ex-boyfriend pulling up a chair at our engagement dinner was just part of the plan. My mom leaned in toward me and whispered, "Who's that?" I didn't answer. I just clenched my jaw and watched Darren pour himself a glass of wine. He even had the nerve to toast. "To growth," he said, lifting his glass. No one objected. Camille gave a half-smile. Her brother chuckled. I forced a sip just to keep my mouth shut. Dinner dragged on, full of small talk and buried landmines. I was counting bites. 6 more and I could leave. But then my mom, God love her, looked straight at Camille and asked, "Will Darren be at the rehearsal dinner too?" You could have heard a napkin drop. Camille didn't flinch. She looked right at me, then back to my mom. "Darren will always be part of my life," she said. "If you can't handle that, maybe we shouldn't be getting married." Just like that, in front of everyone. My dad set his fork down. My sister choked on her wine. Darren leaned back, watching me like he was waiting for the punchline. I didn't say a word. I pushed my chair back, stood up, and dropped my napkin on the plate. "All right," that's all I said. Then I walked out. No yelling, no speech. Just left my half-eaten meal, my confused parents, and the woman I thought I was going to marry sitting next to her ex. I drove straight home from that dinner, didn't even stop to change. Tossed the blazer on the kitchen floor, grabbed a beer, and sat on the edge of the couch like the air had been knocked out of me. At 6:30 the next morning, I called our wedding planner. Straight to business. "Hi, Christine." "Yeah, Zach. The wedding's off. Permanently." She paused like she didn't hear me right. "I'm sorry, what?" "Cancel it. Everything. Don't roll anything over. I don't want credits or reschedules. I want out. $85,000. Gone." Camille's parents had fronted most of it, but my name was on a couple of contracts too. Didn't matter. I wanted no part of it. I told Christine to send final confirmations and close out the account. She said she'd call Camille's side separately. I hung up and logged into our honeymoon fund next. We'd both set it up, a joint co-owner account tied to our wedding website. Guests had already started sending money. I locked Camille out and moved the balance, just over 13 grand, into my personal account. She wasn't stealing another dollar from me. Then I sent a message to her mom. Not a long one. Just said, "Thank you again for your support. I now realize some values aren't up for negotiation. I agree with Camille. This wedding shouldn't happen." That was it. By 6 that evening, she showed up at my condo. Used the spare key like she still lived there. She walked in wearing that same beige coat I'd seen her in at dinner. Hair curled, lipstick done. Like we were gonna talk this out. But her stuff was already packed. Boxes stacked near the door, all labeled. Clothes, books, shoes. I'd taken my time with it. Nothing damaged. Nothing missing. Just done. She froze. What is this?" "You're here to pick up your things," I said, standing in the hallway. "Once you're out, I'm changing the locks." Her mouth opened and closed like she was short-circuiting. "Zach," she said, stepping closer. "Are you serious right now?" I didn't answer. "You walked out once, and now you're ending everything? Just like that?" I nodded toward the boxes. "I'm not playing games, Camille." She blinked, and the act started to crack. "It was a test. Last night was a test. I needed to know if you could handle pressure, handle real dynamics. Darren's part of my life, but that doesn't mean we. I don't care what it means. I don't do loyalty tests. You humiliated me in front of two families. She reached for my arm. I stepped back. You think modern relationships are simple? She snapped. This is what growth looks like, messy, layered. We push each other. We evolve. Bullshit, I said. You choreographed that dinner like a performance. If that's your version of evolving, count me out. She stood there for a second, breathing hard, then looked down at the boxes like they just appeared. I thought you'd come crawling back today, she said quietly. You always forgive people. I didn't say a word. Her face twisted like she wanted to cry, but couldn't decide if it would work on me. Finally, she turned toward the door. This isn't over, she said. You don't just get to. I cut her off. You've got 1 week to get your stuff out. After that, anything left goes in the dumpster. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her hard enough to rattle the blinds. I stood there, breathing slow, hand on the lock. Then I clicked it shut. The next morning was quiet. No calls, no texts. Just the hum of the fridge and the dull headache behind my eyes. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and saw a new message from Marcus. Subject line: You need to see this. Marcus had never liked Camille. Said she was all PR and projection. He wasn't wrong. I clicked the attachment. It was a photo. Camille and Darren. Downtown, standing inside a loft with exposed brick and big windows. She was smiling, papers in her hand. He was pointing at the ceiling like he owned it. My stomach went cold. The camera angle told me Marcus hadn't taken it. Someone else had, maybe a leasing agent. I zoomed in on the paperwork. Lease forms. 2 names typed side by side. Camille Reed and Darren Lowe. Date: 2 weeks before the dinner. 2 weeks before. That's when it hit me. None of this was reaction. It was all arrangement. The dinner, the ultimatum, the fake shock. Every word she said about growth was scripted to push me into walking away, so they could spin it as some moral experiment. My hands shook as I scrolled back to Marcus's message. He'd written, told you she had a second stage planned. Don't let her bait you again. I didn't reply. I just stared at the screen until my coffee went cold. Then I opened my email and typed one final message to Christine, the wedding planner. Hi Christine, please consider all previous cancellations final. Do not issue any credits or refunds to any parties under my name. Permanently closed. Thank you for your help. I hit send, closed the laptop, and stood up. Enough. I grabbed the spare keys from the counter and walked straight to the front door. The thought of Camille walking back in here made my skin crawl. I changed the deadbolt myself, screwdriver, new hardware. Done in 10 minutes. Then I sent her a text. Your access code is disabled. You have 3 days to collect anything left behind. After that, disposal is final. Read receipt popped up almost immediately. No reply. I sat back down, elbows on my knees, trying to make sense of the timeline. While I was booking venues and tasting cakes, she was signing a lease with the guy she once called her past chapter, and I'd bought it. The therapy talk, the new model of love. The constant buzzwords she used to sound enlightened. It wasn't philosophy. It was control. A notification pinged Marcus again. You good? He wrote. Yeah. I typed back. Better than yesterday. He called a minute later. Man, I didn't want to be right, he said. But that photo, she wasn't just playing you, she was documenting it. Documenting? Yeah, he said. Check the watermark on the image bottom corner. It's from some media collective. I think they were shooting content. I pulled the photo up again, zoomed in. There it was, tiny letters in the corner, Relational Future Collective. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew I'd be finding out. Appreciate it, man, I told him. I've got it handled. You sure? Marcus asked. Because this is bigger than a breakup. I'm sure. When the call ended, I tossed my phone on the couch and just sat there. Echo, my dog, lifted his head from the floor, watching me. He could sense when something was off. I reached down and rubbed his ears, steadying my hands. Not our problem anymore, buddy, I said. That night, I took every framed photo of Camille and me off the wall. One by one. packed them into a trash bag. I didn't even look at the faces. 3 days. That's all she got. And this time, I meant it. I was halfway through dumping Camille's stuff in boxes on day 2 when my phone lit up. Victor Reed. Her father. I stared at the screen for a second, then answered. Didn't even get a hello. You selfish little shit, he barked. Do you have any clue what you've done? I held the phone away from my ear. You humiliated my daughter. You embarrassed this entire family. You think walking away from $85,000 in contracts is just something people do. I think I didn't agree to marry your daughter and her ex-boyfriend, I said flat. You think this is funny? You think this is a game? He was yelling so loud I could hear him pacing. Papers rustling. A door slamming. You broke a promise, Zach. Public promise. That's breach. There are consequences. We have receipts. I didn't even raise my voice. You threatening to sue me? I'm telling you, you'll be hearing from a lawyer. You left us with the bill. You ran away like a coward, and now you think you're off the hook? Camille gave you everything. I laughed. Couldn't help it. Yeah, she gave me Darren. That shut him up for a second. I should have known you were weak, he finally said. Men like you can't handle real women. Real families. He hung up. I stood there, holding the phone like it was some kind of prop in a bad play. A minute later, I walked next door to Dana's place, my neighbor. She's a contract lawyer. Mid-40s, sharp as hell, no patience for drama. She opened her door wearing gym shorts and holding a LaCroix. Let me guess, she said. You need legal clarity. Yep. I explained everything. The dinner, the lease, the threats. She didn't even blink. They've got no case. You sure? Zach, Camille publicly gave you an ultimatum. That's on record, multiple witnesses. You didn't breach anything. You made a personal decision based on her terms. No judge is going to side with a jilted family crying about deposits they fronted voluntarily. I let that sink in. Even if I signed a few vendor agreements, only the ones with your name would matter. Review them, but if they're split with her family or under a planner's umbrella, you're fine. That night, I pulled out the folder, scanned every document I'd signed. Catering, Camille's parents. Venue, under the Planners LLC. Photographer, paid in full, no clawback clause. Dana was right. I was clean. Next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from Victor. His voice was calm now, too calm. The kind that made your skin itch. You'll regret this decision, he said. You don't walk away from our family, Zach. We gave you everything. You think you can just disappear? Not how this works. We don't forget. Then click. No goodbye. No warning. Just that chilling pause before the line went dead. I played it twice. Suddenly, the money didn't feel like the real issue anymore. This was never about the wedding. Or Camille. Or even me. This was about control. Ownership. The image they'd built. The future they'd decided was theirs to sculpt. And I'd cracked it in half by saying one word. All right. After Victor's voicemail, I couldn't sit still. I needed something solid. Something I could point to and say, this is what they were doing. This is what they thought they'd get away with. So I opened the honeymoon fund account again. I'd already pulled the money, but I hadn't dug into the history. This time I did. That's when I saw it. A transfer for $11,000, dated 3 days before the dinner. Not to me, not to Camille, to a business account I didn't recognize. Relational Future Collective LLC. I sat up straight. The name sounded familiar. I pulled up the lease photo Marcus had sent. Bottom right corner, same watermark. Relational Future Collective. That wasn't just the photographer. It was them. I searched the name online and found a barely designed website. White background. Buzzwords everywhere. Rewriting love. Deconstructing commitment. Building post-traditional ecosystems. What the hell did any of that even mean? Then I clicked on the Our Team page and saw Darren's smug face. Arms crossed, standing in front of an empty warehouse space with a slogan painted on the wall. Partnership isn't a destination. It's a prototype. Camille was listed as narrative consultant. I stared at the screen, my heart thudding in this slow, sick rhythm. The fund we built together, where friends and family had sent real money to celebrate our future, had been drained into that. I texted her right then. Zach, explain the $11,000 transfer to Relational Future Collective. Zach, that money came from our honeymoon fund. Zach, this better be a mistake. She responded 10 minutes later. Camille, it's not a mistake. It's a seed contribution to a shared model we're building. Camille, there's a docu-series in development. It's about moving past outdated relationship roles. I was going to tell you when you were ready, Camille, but you weren't open. You kept resisting growth. I laughed out loud, not because it was funny, but because of course that's what she'd say. Zach, so I was a prop, not a partner. Zach, you don't want marriage. You want a script to control. Zach, don't contact me again. No reply after that. I sat in the dark for a while, scrolling back through every conversation we'd had over the past 6 months. All the times she'd dropped lines like emotional architecture and redefining purpose. I thought she was just trying to sound smart. Turns out it was a pitch. She never wanted a life with me. She wanted content. And I almost gave it to her. That night, I grabbed an old notebook from my kitchen drawer, legal pad half used. I flipped past the scribbles and grocery lists and started writing everything down. Dates, transactions, quotes. The whole story beginning to end. If this was a setup, and it clearly was, I wasn't going to let it disappear in a puff of gaslight and jargon. Page 1. They tried to turn me into a character in their performance. Page 2. They stole money and called it vision. Page 3. They wanted me to break so they could study the collapse. I didn't know where it would go. Court? A blog? A book? I didn't care. I just knew I needed a record. By the end of that week, the whispers started. A friend of mine from work, Travis, a mechanic I trusted, called me out of nowhere and said, "Hey man, just wanted you to know. Camille's mom's been talking." What kind of talking? She told my wife you'd been spiraling, that you were unstable, that the breakup wasn't mutual. I didn't even flinch. Let me guess. Emotional issues? Lack of maturity? Fear of commitment? Pretty much word for word, he said. She also said you had anger problems and tried to sabotage your own wedding. I let out a breath through my nose. They're scrambling. 2 days later, it hit my social circle. Camille was on a podcast hosted by some influencers she knew from grad school, talking about relationship evolution and the trauma of being partnered with someone who couldn't expand their view of love. She didn't say my name, but everyone knew. Then came the posts. Subtle at first, quotes about healing and growth, little jabs buried in fake wisdom. Then her friends chimed in. And the message was clear. Zach couldn't handle her truth. Zach couldn't evolve. But they didn't expect the receipts. One of my friends, Kelly, who used to work in finance, messaged me a screenshot from a mutual group chat. "Hey," she wrote, "someone found the LLC transfer from your honeymoon fund. People are talking." A few more hours and someone dropped a Reddit thread. Ex-fiancée funneled wedding funds to experimental relationship startup? That was the title. Inside, screenshots, links, the full breakdown. Camille and Darren's lease. The LLC filing. The photo Marcus had sent me. Everything. It blew up fast. Hundreds of comments. And not just from strangers. People we both knew started liking it, sharing it, asking quiet questions in DMs. The narrative flipped. Suddenly, I wasn't the emotionally fragile guy stuck in the past. I was the one who got played. A couple days later, Camille's employer, the Cascadia Media Foundation, issued a public statement. Pending an internal review of financial ethics violations, Camille Reed has been placed on administrative leave. Boom. Even better, Darren doubled down and tanked himself. He released a new podcast episode called When Men Fear Change, Why the Future Leaves Them Behind. It was supposed to be a victory lap, a smug monologue about breaking norms and rewriting male ego. But the minute it dropped, someone in the Reddit thread posted a link to his legal record. Turned out Darren had a restraining order filed against him 2 years ago in Portland. Another woman, same exact pattern. She'd accused him of manipulation, financial abuse, and using her in some kind of experimental structure that he tried to label as performance art. That blew the doors open. More people came forward. One guy commented that Darren had pitched him on joining a poly-housing pilot program, but ghosted after he declined. Another woman shared screenshots of emails with language eerily similar to Camille's texts to me. Same terms. Same gaslighting. Same cycle. It wasn't a breakup anymore. It was exposure. The next morning, I walked Echo down by the waterfront and noticed 3 missed calls from an unknown number. I didn't even bother checking the voicemail. I knew it wasn't over. But I also knew one thing for sure. Their mask had finally cracked. A week later, Camille's name disappeared from Cascadia Media Foundation's website. No press release, no announcement. Just gone. I got confirmation through a friend who worked there. They let her go quietly, she said. Too much noise. Too many questions. Board didn't want the heat. Camille tried to play it off on LinkedIn like she was pivoting to a new creative chapter. Nobody bought it. Comments were dry. Likes were scarce. Then came the fallout. Her parents, Victor and Lila, sold their vacation home in Chelan. I saw the Zillow listing get shared in a Facebook group. Caption read, "Urgent sale. Serious buyers only." Rumor was they needed cash fast. Between the wedding loss and legal bills from a tanked side investment Victor had made through Darren, their finances were upside down. Good. Meanwhile, Darren's sponsors started pulling out. Podcast hosts, lifestyle brands, small VC firms. One by one, they scrubbed him from their feeds. 3 weeks after the Reddit thread went viral, his website was offline. I thought that would be the end of it, until I got the email. No subject line, no signature, just one attachment, a PDF labeled Social Structure Blueprint. I opened it on my laptop, half expecting spam. But it wasn't spam. It was a full presentation deck. 36 pages. Branding, diagrams, flowcharts. Titled, Phase Cycles of Narrative Integrated Relational Design. And right there under pilot cohorts were names. First names only, but paired with cities, professions, and timelines. Seattle. Pilot A, male subject. Commercial aviation. 6-month integration. Phase 3 incomplete. Me. Each cohort had a goal. Observe emotional resistance under strain. Capture conflict footage. Redirect identity toward nonlinear partnership frameworks. It was written like we were science experiments. Camille was listed as narrative guide. Darren was structural architect. I scrolled through every page, feeling sicker with each click. Atlanta, Austin, Portland. 5 other men before me. 3 women. All dumped after structural failure. I sat there for an hour, not even moving, just rereading the same lines, letting it sink in. This wasn't just manipulation. This was a process, a designed, repeatable cycle. I needed to talk to someone who'd been through it. So I picked one city and started digging. Portland. Found a blog from a guy named Tyler who'd posted a vague essay last year about emotional exploitation disguised as intellectual intimacy. I reached out through the contact form. Didn't expect a reply. He emailed me back the same day. We talked on the phone that night. Camille and Darren? He said the second I introduced myself. Yeah, I know who you are. They mentioned you. You were next. I froze. They told you about me? Yeah. Darren said they were working with a pilot this time. Said it was higher risk, higher yield. I thought they were exaggerating. Then I saw the Reddit thread. He told me the same story, almost line for line. The charm, the deep talks, the sudden pressure to restructure expectations. Then the gaslighting. Then the exit. They used me, he said. Just like they used you. I didn't even know what to say. The call ended with silence on both sides. Like neither of us could put a bow on what had been done to us. I closed my laptop, sat back, and looked around my condo. Quiet, clean, still. It was never about love. Not for them. It was always about the design, the structure, the damn blueprint. And I was just another line in their case study. The text came late, just after 10. Camille, one last time. Just closure. Please. I stared at the screen for a solid minute. Then typed, tomorrow. Green Lake Park. Noon. No emojis. No punctuation. No tone. Just facts. Next day, I clipped Echo's leash and walked the trail we used to take almost every weekend. Leaves were turning. Wind was low. Echo trotted ahead, tongue out, clueless. Lucky him. I spotted her on a bench by the water. Gray sweater, jeans, hair tied up. No makeup, no jewelry. Just tired eyes and a face I barely recognized. She stood when she saw me, like she wasn't sure if she should smile or not. I didn't smile back. "Thanks for coming," she said, voice soft. "I wasn't sure if you'd actually show." I didn't answer, just stayed standing, hands in my jacket pockets. Echo sat beside me, tail still wagging. She took a step closer, looked me over like she was trying to read some reaction. "You look good," she said. "Stronger." Still nothing from me. She looked down, chewing her lip. I really thought you'd come back." That made me blink. "You always forgive people," she said. I looked her in the eyes. "I came back to say goodbye." She froze, like the wind had hit her straight in the chest. Her lips trembled for a second. Then she sat back down hard, hands in her lap, fingers knotting together. "You don't understand," she said. "It was never supposed to go that far." Darren pushed for more. I thought I was doing something important, something that mattered. I didn't move. I thought if you saw it play out, maybe you'd understand the bigger vision. "You tried to make me a story," I said. "I was supposed to break, and you were going to build a lesson out of it." She wiped her face fast, like she didn't want me to see the tears. "I messed up." I nodded once. "Yeah." She stood back up, arms crossed now like she was trying to hold herself together. "So that's it? You're just done?" I looked at her face. Smeared mascara, red eyes, mouth tight like she wanted to argue but didn't have the words. "Yeah," I said. "I'm done." I turned and started walking, Echo falling in step beside me like always. I didn't look back. No hate, no guilt, no final words. Just done. 10 months later, I was living in a new place. Top floor of a clean, modern condo building near Seattle, Tacoma. Floor-to-ceiling windows, river view, no shared walls. Just quiet. I kept what mattered. Echo, my tools, my real stuff. Sold the rest or gave it away. That couch she picked out? Gone. The bookshelf full of recommended readings she never actually read? Gone. My space finally felt like mine again, simple, functional, honest. Work was solid. I'd gotten promoted to regional flight trainer in August. More responsibility, better schedule, less time in hotel beds. I loved being in the air, but training rookies reminded me why I started. Sharp decisions. Focus. No vague words, just clear instructions and fast answers. Therapy helped. I won't lie, first few sessions felt like a waste. But after a while I started seeing it. How words had been used like a trap. The way she made doubt feel like a character flaw. Every time I questioned her, she'd twist it into evidence that I was rigid or conditioned. Turns out I wasn't the one with the problem. I was just the one who didn't go along with the script. And yeah, I'd started dating again. Nothing serious at first. Just grabbing drinks, swapping stories, getting used to being normal again. No deep talks about frameworks. No rehearsed vulnerability. Then I met Mia at my climbing gym. It wasn't a lightning bolt moment. No slow-motion glance across the room. She was just next to me on the wall one day, trying to reach a hold she kept missing. I spotted her, gave her a tip, and we laughed when she still slipped off. After a few weeks of running into each other, I asked if she wanted to grab dinner. She said yes. Simple. She didn't know the backstory. I didn't offer it. We talked about work, hobbies, road trips we wanted to take. She told me she played drums in high school and never stopped tapping on things. I told her I once flew a cargo run with a snake loose in the cockpit. We laughed until the waiter gave us a look. Felt easy. Real. No one trying to impress, no one trying to study the other. Just two people figuring things out. I liked that she didn't try to define anything too soon. I liked that she didn't bring up energy or alignment within 5 minutes. I liked that when I told her I liked dogs and airplanes. She just said, "That tracks," and smiled. We weren't building a structure. We were just talking. And maybe that was the whole point. After everything, after all the mind games and masks and fake lessons, what I needed wasn't some grand theory of love. I just needed space to be a person again. No blueprint, no agenda, just new ground. We were at a small local art show downtown. Nothing fancy, just a gallery pop-up inside an old furniture store. White walls, string lights, tables made from reclaimed barn wood. Mia liked this kind of thing. I was getting into it. She leaned in close to a clay sculpture shaped like a spiral ribcage and said, "You think the artist made this on mushrooms or a breakup?" I smirked. "Both. Definitely both." She laughed, soft and real, then stepped toward the next piece. I turned to follow her, and that's when I saw Camille. She was across the room, half hidden behind a table covered in wine bottles and donation flyers, wearing a volunteer apron, hair tied back, sleeves rolled up, pouring drinks like someone who didn't want to be seen but couldn't help watching the room. She looked older somehow, not in a bad way, just worn in, less polish, less shine. Her eyes scanned the crowd, and then they landed on me. For a second, everything slowed. She didn't smile, didn't wave, just stared. And in that 1 second, the mask dropped. No poise, no performance, just regret. Flat, heavy, and silent. Like she knew exactly what I saw when I looked at her, and what I didn't. I gave a short nod. Not mean, not warm, just polite. Then I turned back to Mia, who was deep in conversation with a sculptor about fire kills or something. She was animated, waving her hands, asking real questions. I watched her talk, her eyes bright, her body loose with comfort. No agenda, no show. This is normal, I thought. This is real. We left about 10 minutes later. As we walked to the car, Mia glanced back at the gallery. "Hey, did you know that girl at the wine table?" I shrugged. "Old friend." She didn't press, just slipped her hand into mine as we crossed the street. No drama, no performance, just life moving forward. Sometimes all right really does mean the end.